I felt a lot of times when I was younger, I was misunderstood. I couldn't find a place to fit, and it wasn't my creative energy that gave me passion, that gave me a reason. I don't want to say a reason to live, but kind of, yeah, like a reason to to be happy with my life and what I had. And that's something that when you have it, you can't lose that.
AJ. Let's get into it, man. AJ Ampadu, comic book writer, comic book publisher. My friend from back in the day. Thank you for joining me on my show, man.
Thank you for having me, man. Really, really enjoy this opportunity.
Yeah. We're gonna have some fun, man. So I always like to start from the beginning. And as I know you were born and raised in Buffalo, New York. And I understand that your older brother, who was in the military, was the one who introduced you to comics.
Yes, shout out my big brother Wes. He served in as a Marine, and he came back. And if anyone knows, like when you have a family member who comes back while they're on tour for the military, it's always a big deal. Just so happy to see them. Whether it be they're back for the holidays or whatnot. And of course, he brought back a little gift for his little brother,
How
and
much
it
older
was
is he?
my he's about 10 years older than me. There's a pretty big
Okay.
age gap between the two of us.
Okay.
So he brought back a comic, and it was an X-Men comic, and more specifically it was a chapter of the Dark Phoenix saga. If you're an X-Men fan, you know that the Dark Phoenix saga is like one of the biggest storylines that they had. And this particular issue heavily featured Wolverine. And if you can imagine never knowing anything about superheroes, never knowing anything about comic books, having a very active imagination as I did growing up in Buffalo, New York, also having very limited access to media. I didn't have cable TV. This is pre-internet, so there's no streaming. There's no, we I think we might have had a Nintendo NES, but I don't even know if we had that um, at that time. So I'm just ready for something new, something interesting, something cool. And your big brother hands you an X-Men comic with this guy named Wolverine who is fighting the Hellfire Club people, and he keeps calling people Bub. He's got these cool claws, and it just blew me away. I was just like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And from that point, I had a really strong interest in comic books. And then I had a friend at my middle school who he actually collected them. He had more money than I did. That's another thing that a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of these hobbies are very expensive. Whether it be toys, collecting comics, anything that involves collectibles
Yeah.
requires a lot of money. So it didn't have a lot of money to buy comics. So my access to comics is really through one of my friends in school who did have a little bit more money than me, who collected them regularly. And I would read his books from his collection. And that's how I kind of really, really became addicted to them. And just seeing these comics, seeing these illustrations, seeing these characters fleshed out, it was for me at that age, it was amazing. I was enamored with this form of storytelling. So that really was my entry point in terms of just becoming a fan and a reader of comic books.
Mhm. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you actually were selling comic books at one time. You were making your own comic books and selling them to your classmates when you were in fifth grade.
Yeah, so the same friend that I mentioned, we had another buddy. There was about three or four of us, and we decided to form our own comic book company. And
This is a
we
return for you. Earthtone Kingdom is
yes,
a
I know,
return for you.
right? It is actually. So we would come up with these characters, and we would make our comics. And the crazy thing about it is, I wasn't an artist. I would draw, but I wasn't the main artist. We had another buddy. My other two friends were much better at artwork, and I was much better at the storytelling aspect of it. So we would brainstorm. We would come up with our own comics, and we would illustrate them. But because we were a company, we were selling the books, right, as well. But we back then, and it's so crazy to think about the leap in technology. We didn't have access to printers or photocopy machines or any of that type of stuff. So if another kid in the class wanted an issue of our new comic, we'd the artist would have to draw it twice. He was literally illustrating the whole comic twice in duplicate so that he could then sell it to the other. We didn't last very long. We didn't make that many issues, but we had the vision of the comic book creation um, in our blood, and it was a lot of fun. And thinking back on those memories, it definitely was the beginning.
How did your relationship with comics change as you got older? Did you continue reading comics? Were you as into it as you were when you were younger, or you get older and you're like, man, I'm too grown for this stuff, you know?
So that's a very, very valid question. And what you just said is exactly what happened. Right around the late 90s when I was in high school, I was now spending my own money, the little money that I earned on comics. And there was this thing that happened with the comic book industry. In the early 90s, there was this huge boom where they were
Yeah.
selling more copies than they ever had. And then the comic book companies kind of got a little bit full of themselves, and it always happens with industry. You can see this happening with film companies and music companies as well. They start to put out uh, poorer and poorer quality stuff and more of it because they know they have a market, a very robust market. And that's what happened with the comic book industry in the mid 90s. And the result was just a lower quality of comics. And I remember I had just gone to the comic store, I had just bought a new Spider-Man comic, and it was really expensive and it wasn't good. And I
Mm.
remember walking into high school and I was looking at this comic and I was kind of reading it and I was kind of disappointed in it. And one of my buddies was like, "You still read comics? What, you haven't discovered girls yet?" And I was kind of just like, you know what? I think this dude is right because I'm not enjoying this comic that much and I should be talking to girls more. So it was kind of like this moment where I was like, I'm done. And I pretty much just dropped comics for at least a decade where I was just, oh, that was something cool that I did in my adolescence, but now it's time to grow up. Now it's time to mature, go off to college and stuff like that.
Okay, okay. So we're at the point in your life where you put comics down for a while. You were growing, they were at a low point creatively, or and you you grew, you were getting older. How did you get into music?
Music was something that I was always very much into. Grew up in the church, so church choir, things of that nature. Always into rhythm and music, and around the time that I was graduating high school, I started rapping in high school because I fell in love with hip hop, and I would rap other rappers' lyrics. I think that's something that a lot of people start off doing when they first learn
Hmm.
hip hop. So I would grab a Tribe Called Quest verse and I would rap it from beginning to end like it was my own. And I was just learning how to rhyme and put words together and just learning cadence and flow and all that type of stuff. But I never took it seriously. And when I got to college, I was kind of like the guy who raps. Like
Yeah.
no one else really raps. So even though I wasn't really trying to rap like that, just because I had some rapping talent, I became the guy who rapped. And it wasn't until after college that I decided, you know what, I really want to really go into hip hop because I kept working at it, kept doing it, it felt right. And I think I just got pulled into it. I had a lot of people around me who were doing hip hop, a lot of people who were making music, and it was just an organic path for me where it just made sense. It felt good. I knew I was getting better and better at it, and I just decided to start recording. And once I started recording, that's when I really fell in love with it because prior to that, I was in that freestyle stage where
Yeah.
you would just get up with your homies and you guys
Yep.
would just throw on a beat and everyone would just spit verses. And I was locked in that for like a couple years and that was a lot of fun. But then I was the one who was like, hey guys, let's record some music.
Yeah.
And, my other friends were like, there were some people who were really good at freestyling, but they weren't great at songwriting.
Yep.
And I was like okay at freestyle, but songwriting was calling me, was pulling me in. So once I
Storyteller. You're a storyteller.
right, exactly. So when I first discovered the studio, and I linked up with a really great engineer in Buffalo, New York. Shout out my man Derek. Then it was just magic because then I had someone who could take my ideas and make them real. And the first time you record a song or two or three, and you start to play it back, and you listen to it over and over again, you become addicted to that feeling.
So now I kind of want to have a little fun here and just and go back a little bit and reminisce to those days of making music in New York. I remember those days being incredibly fun. We were young and just trying stuff out for better or worse. We were exploring the possibilities of that era, which was the blog era, where it was the Wild West, you know. Um, but like, I don't want to romanticize it too much because, of course, there are some things I would do differently for sure. But it was a lot of fun nonetheless. I would love to hear how you remember those days.
Wow, well, you just described them so accurately. When people
Oh
use the word
man, yeah.
scene, when people say, "Oh, there's an art scene or there's a fashion scene," there was a music scene in New York, and
Yes.
and what that meant is there was a bunch of artists who were creating music and performing music, and then there was a bunch of people who were plugging into that as well. Whether you had photographers, journalists, promoters, DJs, excuse me, DJs, producers. Um, and there was like this ecosystem. And when I say ecosystem, I'm not even talking about money. I'm talking about social
Yeah.
currency, where every day we were networking, every day we were meeting new people, every day we were reconnecting with people, almost like church, right? Like
Yeah.
you go to certain places that catered to independent hip hop, and you would see the same people
Fat
every
beats.
time you went. Right, Fat Beats. I think about all the different places we used to frequent and perform at a lot, from Knitting
Yep.
Factory all the way
Public
to
Assembly.
Southpaw, Public Assembly.
Southpaw.
Um, Shout out Public Assembly when it used to be called Galapagos. That was my first show ever.
Right.
Um,
Galapagos. That's
yes,
it.
and
You're
then it became,
absolutely
yep.
right.
And yeah, we used to. So there was just this energy. It's almost challenging for me to articulate it because everyone had like a fire in their belly.
Yes.
And when I think about how when you're young, how much free time you have versus when you're older, and utilizing that free time for creative things that bring you together is probably the best expenditure of your time at
Yeah.
that age, especially. And growing your network, traveling, standing up in front of large crowds of people. And New Yorkers start standing in front of large crowds of New Yorkers who don't even
Listen,
know who you are,
you
and within
better be
60
good.
seconds, right? Within 60 seconds, you have to earn their respect. That was one of my things where I was like, "Yo, the first minute of my show, I got to do something. I gotta come out spitting because people need to know that I'm not like I'm actually worth standing on the stage in front of you performing music." So just learning all of that, and then just being close to other brilliant artists such as yourself and other artists like Homeboy Sandman and Fresh Daily. Shout out Nola Darling.
Yeah.
Shout out Sosa, and the list. I can shout out people for so long, but
Listen.
um, I was I learned so much from everybody around me,
Yeah.
and that energy poured into me, and hopefully I poured it back outwardly.
Absolutely.
And it's one of those things where you don't realize what it is until it's gone. I really miss it just because, once again, the camaraderie, and also the fact that everyone we met and interacted with had some type of talent.
Yeah.
Not everyone was a rapper or a producer, but there are people, like, once I mentioned photography, journalism, or even show promotion, or show, everyone had something that they were really good at that didn't necessarily earn them a paycheck. And that's another thing.
Right.
Like when you get older and you come out of that scene, everything that everyone does now is for some type of financial incentive. Um, we were working really, really, really hard for things that didn't give us a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that is so fruitful, and that's so good for your soul because it's a labor of love. You're creating something that you really want to create just because you want to create it and for no other reason. And I feel like so many people don't have that opportunity. They don't
Hmm.
get to that point in their life where they can spend hours, days, years working on a craft just because they love it for no
Yeah.
other reason, just because they love it. And I really wish everyone could have that experience.
So now take me to the moment where you felt like, okay, maybe music is not working out anymore. Like when that moment where you started to get on the path that you're on now.
So I can't isolate it as one moment. It's probably like a series of unfortunate events where little things would happen here and there. You know,
Give me an example.
well, I remember just thinking, I don't know what show it was or something like that. And I don't want to reveal who I was speaking to, but I was speaking to somebody who was managing another artist, and they were telling me that they were done managing. They're like, yeah, this is my last show. I'm no longer gonna manage this artist anymore. And I was kind of like, well, why? What's that? What's the reason for that? And they're like, dude, we're not making any money.
Hmm.
And I kind of sat back and I was really thinking about my hip hop career, and I was thinking about, yeah, I'm not really making that much money. I'm definitely not making enough money to sustain me indefinitely.
Hmm.
And it
And to be
just
clear, you had a 9 to 5 that was
hmm
sustaining you
yeah, yeah,
as well.
I had a gig, but my gig was it was a full-time job, but I worked longer shifts, so I was only working like a couple days a week. So,
Hmm.
because I was doing like 12-hour shifts, so that gave me like at least 4 or 5 days a week where I could focus on music.
Nice.
And yes, I was not depending on my music career to sustain me, and I was terrified of doing that.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to take a chance at not having, health insurance or having to rely on gigs or
Hmm.
music sales to live in expensive ass New York City. So it was honestly, I'm not ashamed to say that I was very afraid of being a full-time artist. It was less about my faith in myself, and it was more about my lack of faith in the industry. My
Yeah.
the closer I got to the music industry, the more I just felt like there's something wrong with this infrastructure. There's
Mm.
something very rotten at the core of this infrastructure, and I'm not the one to crack it. I'm not the one to solve it or fix it. There's a bunch of vultures, and there's so much negative, toxic energy,
Yeah.
and I never felt like people were pro artists. I felt like people want to take everything they can from an artist, but nobody really wants to support an artist. And
Yeah.
it became a situation where it's like, this is not sustainable. This is something that I love.
Yep.
This is something that I want to do, and I want to do it as much as I possibly can because I have a song in my heart. I want to sing it. But at the same time, if I want to go to that next stage in my life, if I want to level up, as I go into my 30s, into my 40s, there's certain things that I need. There's certain things that I want, and the music industry is not going to give that to me.
Hmm.
So that's kind of so I can't say it was one specific moment where I was like, no, this is not going to work. It was just a collection of moments over the years that kind of congealed into something.
When you were having these realizations, what did that do to you emotionally? Did it make you, did it kind of discourage you? Did it, were you saddened by these realizations?
It's
Because
a
it
great
sounds
question.
like the joy that that type of realization can really just evaporate the fun and the joy of making music.
It's definite sadness. It's bittersweet. It's nostalgia. It's disappointment in yourself. Feelings of failure.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
feelings of and then you mentioned saying, what would I have done differently, and doing that, like looking back in the past and trying to figure out, well, maybe if I went left instead of going right, or when that happened, I should have done this. And then I think about those, and then I realize that I don't think I would have the outcome would have changed too much for me. Um, there's those if you ever read those choose your own adventure books, I don't know if people remember those from when you were a kid.
Hmm.
But they were like these little sci-fi fantasy adventure books you would read, and you would have be given a choice, and then you would say, if you want to turn left, turn to page 50. If you want to turn right, turn to page 60. A lot of times with those books, you could make two divergent choices and still end up with the same ending. So I kind of feel like that's how my music career was, where there's really nothing that I could have done to navigate the music industry in a way that would have served me.
Hmm.
um, I could have done things that might have made me more successful, but I don't think I would have been successful internally.
And do you still have a 9 to 5, or is comic book writing your full time job right now?
So I still have another gig, yes,
Hmm.
but I'm really, to be honest with you, I was looking at some of my numbers and I was thinking like, yeah, I could probably quit my job now if I wanted to.
Mm.
And go full time with comics. It's a decision I've toyed with. Me, I just like having safety nets. I like having. I'm just a very practical person when it comes to
Yeah.
finances and money.
Yeah.
So if I don't have to, take a leap, it's different. I don't. I won't. And also, I'm at a completely different stage of my life. I'm married with a child, right?
Yeah.
So
It's not just you anymore.
right. So it's like I don't want to like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go full time in the comics, and then next year the comic book industry tanks, and now I'm just
Yeah.
like left, telling my wife, yeah, we ain't making mortgage this month. I don't want to be in that position. So I guess I'm still holding on to that fear of commitment of going completely out there and just saying, hey, listen, I'm just gonna follow this business dream, and just stick like that. But who knows what's gonna happen in the future? I like having options. So what I'm dealing with right now is good problems. These are first world problems. You know, do I quit my good job and go full time into my business that's also growing, or what? These are things that are not really issues. They're decisions, they're choices.
So, P, I'm hearing just your creative your creative identity is so multifaceted. Um, and at this point, I wanna take a step back because there's a you wrote a script for a TV show and sold it. I don't want to skip over that part. I want to.
Well, so I sold the screenplay.
Okay, so the
I, I
screenplay.
I had a TV show script that was in development. So
Okay,
yeah,
so that's so I mean you were dabbling in TV at the time.
yeah.
Tell us about that.
Okay, thank you for this question. Yeah, when I first decided to take writing seriously, I thought that maybe I was going to be a TV writer.
Hmm. Around what year would you
So
say this was?
this was 2018.
Okay.
So basically, in 2018, I had just um, proposed to my wife, and I was looking forward to. That's a very any man who's gone through that. You're looking at the future now. You're like, oh my gosh, it's just been me this whole time. Now I'm with a partner. So how are we gonna live this life together?
Yep.
And I'm thinking about everything, and I was actually very, very depressed, because I didn't know what to do. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to continue doing music full, as much as I was doing it before. I had a lot of creative energy, and I didn't know where to direct it. So I was like, well, I've always been a writer. I always love writing. Let me see what I can do. And at the time, for whatever reason, I guess it's because TV is so hot and everyone's always watching TV shows and things like that. I was like, well, let me see if I can really start writing television or film. And I just started writing I had all these ideas for screenplays and stuff, and I was just writing and writing and writing and writing. And I got the opportunity to meet a producer, and they were a really, really, really cool person. And they read my scripts and they thought I was very talented. And because they had so many connections, they were like, "All right, we're gonna start shopping you around." So that's how I got an opportunity to write a screenplay and sell it. And that was an awesome opportunity because I had never done anything like that. And that particular screenplay was something that was way out of my wheelhouse. It was a comedy, like a high school comedy and stuff like that. I had never really written comedy, so I was like, "You sure I'm the right guy for the job?" And they're like, "Oh, no, no, we like you. We like your writing." So I sold that screenplay. I don't think the movie ever got made. Maybe it will be one day, but only the movie got made. And then the TV show idea, they loved the TV show idea, and we went through several rewrites. We pitched it to a bunch of different producers, and I guess the way things work in television a lot of times is there's this like hierarchy of like people who have to sign off on something in order for it to get finally greenlit.
Yeah.
And there's like it's almost like you're fighting a boss level in a video game. You get into each level. Well, they liked it. Okay, we can go to. They liked it. Okay, so we would navigate through these levels, and we would get these notes, and we would have to go back and rewrite the script, and then repitch it to them, and it's bouncing back and down through the different producers and things. Very much they call it development hell, and I kind of got caught in development hell, and then I just got burnt out. I was like, listen, I've done like 8 page one rewrites. I've done like double digit drafts of this script.
Mm.
I've written the script. I've changed the protagonist. I've changed the villain. I've done everything that all the notes came back, and it just seemed like we weren't really getting. We're almost there, but we weren't really getting there, and I kind of burnt out on it. And the producer and I just decided to let's just table this for now, and maybe one day we'll come back to it. Actually, they just reached out to me recently and said, "Hey, do you want to start repitching that pilot you had. So maybe that show will still get made. I've heard stories of this happening all over the industry,
Hmm.
of movies and TV shows that take sometimes decades to get
Yeah.
finally produced. So what I was experiencing is very common in the industry.
Yeah.
And I realized when I got to a point, I was like, maybe this isn't for me either. It's like a lot of work that ends in nothing. And that's what was frustrating me. So I was like, if I do comics, I know I can produce a comic from beginning to end. So
Yeah.
all my work will result in a final product.
So it was TV that really got you into publishing
Yeah,
your own comics.
because it was like and it was the failures in the music and the failures in television that made me
Hmm.
realize for me to take grasp control of my own creativity, comic books was the perfect medium.
Hmm. Now take me through starting your own publishing company, because you did Gateway to Greatness in 2013. That was in conjunction with the album Gateway to Greatness. It was like the album came out first and then the comic. It was a digital comic that came out on Comixology. This was
Hmm.
2013. So now we are approaching 2022 when you launched Earthtone Kingdom. Tell me about that journey to creating your own publishing company, Earthtone Kingdom.
So we're in 2018 where I'm engaged. I'm depressed because I don't know what the future of my creative career is, and I'm anxious because I'm thinking that I'm going to have to relinquish that creative career completely. So in that within that depression, I'm writing like crazy, and I'm pouring myself into my pages. And my vision, I was still thinking about the television and film um, path at that point where I'm going to finish a script and I'm going to send it to a publisher and they're going to make my comic for me, right? That's how I was thinking still. So I finished these two scripts. One of them was Dragon Face, the other one was Kimmy Cosmic. And I finished these scripts and I built some art teams and I got a few pages done and I started sending them off to some comic book publishers. And instantly I got some great responses. They're like, we love this. We want to publish this. Here's the contract. And I got the contracts back. And I remember looking at the contracts and I'm like, I don't like these contracts. Like and I'm like, you know what these contracts remind me of? These
Hmm.
contracts remind me of the ones I've seen in the music industry. And if I didn't have the experience that I had before, I probably definitely would have signed those contracts. But
Yeah.
it was the music industry that taught me how to see a bad contract. And I was just like, you know what? You guys aren't offering me enough. And there was like no negotiables with some of these people. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna try this on my own. So it was the bad contracts I received and just ultimately feeling that I think I can sell my book better than you can sell my book.
Hmm.
So, and also if I sell my book, I keep 100% of the profits, where if you sell it, I'm getting X amount of profits or whatnot. And I just didn't
Yeah.
trust the system. It felt too much like the shadiness that I experienced in the music industry. So I was like, let me try it on my own. And if I fail, I fail. And I'm okay. I'm totally okay with failing. But I'm much more comfortable failing myself than
Yep.
working with somebody else and having them fail me.
And they
Because
fail.
that's going to
Yep.
make me angry and resentful and whatnot.
Amen.
So,
Yep.
and when COVID happens, now it's me and my now wife in 2020, because we got married in 2019. We're just in our Brooklyn apartment staring at the wall all day. So we started hatching our business ideas, and I learned from my wife, and she was taking business classes and things like that. I was like, you know what? I can start Earthtone as my own imprint and just start putting my comics out by myself. And the only thing I need is money. And I had a little bit of money, but not enough. And that's where Kickstarter comes in. So yeah, I launched a Kickstarter, and I was just blown away at the response. People just really responded well, and they supported it, and I was able to launch the company off of my first Kickstarter. I got just enough money to really push it forward, and that was like 2021, and yeah, the rest is history, man.
How did that feel when you saw the support through Kickstarter for your imprint?
It I felt embarrassed a little bit
Yeah.
because I just I felt like, I know this is gonna sound crazy. I felt like people were giving me too much money. Like 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 I didn't expect that, you know, And what it was friends, families, and fans
Hmm.
really believing in me.
You
And
exceeded the
I
goal.
right, I blew the goal out the water, and I didn't even know that that was possible. I didn't know. I didn't think I was going to even make my numbers. So when we when we exceeded it, I was just like, wow, like this is something that people actually want.
What you were trying to accomplish in music, you're accomplishing in comics. And I want to take a step back to something you said as you were giving your answer to my question. You said that you said something to the effect of you were worried about being able to continue to be creative, something like that, if I'm remembering correctly. And but basically, what I heard was being able to stay in touch with your creative self was very important to you and how you move forward. And I want to hear you talk about that.
We can't we can't lose that part of ourselves. Um, I think that when I was a kid, my creativity and my imagination fought away my depression and my anxiety.
Hmm.
I always was fascinated with science fiction because I could imagine a world that was unlike the world that we live in. Um, Even the TV pilot that I was working on is about that concept. And I felt a lot of times when I was younger, I was misunderstood. I couldn't find a place to fit. And it wasn't my creative energy that gave me passion, that gave me a reason. I don't want to say a reason to live, but kind of, yeah, like a reason to to be happy with my life and what I had. And that's something that when you have it, you can't lose that. So when music kind of was dissolving, and not only my ability and interest in performing as a hip hop artist, but the community that we had built was also breaking down.
Yeah.
People moving away, people not quitting, people quitting, just straight up quitting.
Hmm.
People, we started becoming real adults. Like we were already adults, but now we got to have
Yeah.
people are getting married, people are trying to have children, people are buying houses and trying to sink into careers that they can actually financially benefit from.
And
And
for
while
folks who might be listening to this and instead of watching it, uh, uh, AJ put up air quotes when he said "real adult," real adults. Yeah.
yes, yes, exactly, because adulting is rigged. That's all. It's just paying
Yeah.
bills. But
Yeah.
so as I'm watching this happen to me, I'm like, and this led to my depression in 2018. I was like, I feel like the creative part of me is dying, and I always had this fear of like being like a regular dude, like just like it's almost like if Superman was stuck as Clark Kent, like he
Yeah.
could never
Yeah.
let the cape and just fly and be himself. He always had to stay as Clark Kent. He just couldn't. That's what I was feeling. I was like, all right, I'm putting on this like suit, and I think Homeboy Salmon he has a line in one of his songs where he says, "I'm never gonna wear a tie again." Where
Yeah. Yeah.
he's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Like that's not me. And I was very much like a rebellious creative who never wanted to conform to just normal like 9 to 5 life. And that was just my greatest fear of just like doing what everybody else did because I'm different. Like we're
Yeah.
different. You
Yeah.
know, we we have talents that other people don't have. God has given us talents, and to not be able to use those talents is it
Torture.
can it's toward it can definitely put you in a dark place. So
Yeah.
that's what I was afraid of. I was like, if I can't rap, what am I gonna do? So
Yeah.
that's why I really was going crazy with the writing because I'm like, I gotta do something. I gotta do something just to stay alive. I gotta keep that fire burning. I can't let it be snuffed out.
Mm.
So that's what I was trying to avoid, really.
Mm. That's real. That's real, man. And so now you kept that creativity alive, and you created your own comic book publishing company after a little stint in TV. Um, but now you're making a name for yourself in the comic book industry, and then you get a call from Valiant Comics, which which was your favorite comic book universe growing up. Um,
Yeah.
talk to me
Um,
about what talk to me about when they reached out to you, What was going through your mind? Tell us.
I got an opportunity to meet the editor of Valiant Comics at New York Comic Con. And I kind of just fanned out, told her how much I loved Valiant and if they were looking for new writers. I kind of shot my shot. And she was like, you know what? Send me a pitch. And I don't think thank God for her to just give me a shot at even sending her a pitch. But I think it was just the way I engaged her and just how humble I was and how honest I was about my love for the characters and my knowledge of the characters. So she was like, well, here's a young writer who has a lot of energy and he seems to understand our characters very intimately. So yeah, shoot me a pitch. And I wrote the hell out. I mean, that's one of the best pitches I ever wrote. And I sent it to her and she was like, oh, okay, this is a good pitch. And at that time they were going through a lot of editorial changes, so that particular comic never got made.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't be until a year later that she called me and said, hey, listen, we got some new stories that we want to launch and we want to see if you are a good fit for one of our characters. So you asked me how I felt. It I can't explain it. It's like a dream come true, you know, being able to write for characters that you used to read as a kid. It was just the ultimate, it was just the ultimate full circle moment. So I got the opportunity to write the character named Ninjak, who is kind of like Batman meets 007. He's like this super spy, MI6 agent. And that went over very well. I did a 4 issue miniseries with them. And then I was able to write Shadow Man, who's kind of like this supernatural, kind of like voodoo powered superhero. And he's a black man as well. And I was the first black writer to write Shadow Man.
Oh
So
wow.
that was great. And I did another 5 issue series for them. And then they had a mega event with all the superheroes kind of like fighting together called The Resurgence. And I co-wrote a few issues of that. And it was just now I'm really cooking, right? Because I got my own independent comics that I'm pitching and selling and marketing. And I'm also writing as a writer for a mainstream comic company. So that's another reason why the comic book industry is so different than music, right? Because imagine being signed to a record label and then being able to put out your own music on your own independent label simultaneously. Do that. So there's just things that you can do in this industry that I wasn't able to do in music.
So now I want to get into the more personal side of all of this, right? I want to talk about your support system. And I want to start with your wife, Nicole, whom you have another business with, Yaya Naturals. And she even collaborated with you on one of your own comic book titles called Drone Slayer. Excuse me, I'm getting it
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting too
It's okay.
confused. But tell me about the importance of that relationship to you,
Boy,
and how she holds you down.
thank God for my wife. Um, I don't know if I would really be functioning as well in this space without her. She's my best friend and also a great support system. I mean, I think as creatives, we really benefit having, a significant other.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Being single takes time, energy, and a lot of like running around, and being a creative is a very like kind of stationary thing. Like you're in the lab, whatever you're doing,
yep,
graphic design, artwork, you don't really have a lot of time to be out in the wilderness.
yeah,
It's very comforting to have someone who's in your corner, who's supportive, who you can learn from. You can
hmm
also teach and like, we learn from each other. We ask each other for advice about different things in both companies. So
hmm
I'm very fortunate to have that in my life. We collaborated on Drone Slayer because I wanted to bring her into the world of comics, Uh, I knew that I was going to spend a lot of time on this. And if you're to the people who are married or in just significant relationships, you got to be careful about of working too much and having too many other things that can detract away from the marriage.
yeah,
So I knew that if I brought her in on a comic, this is something that she could be part of too. It's not like this is my thing. This can now be our thing.
yeah.
Right. So I wanted to collaborate with her on one comic, and also this comic stars a young woman, and I just wanted her perspective. I wanted to hear her ideas and her thoughts and how it will contribute to the story. And we watch a lot of TV shows and movies, and we're always talking about the stories and the plot lines. So even though she wasn't a creative writer, I knew that she could contribute to a really cool creative idea. So
Yeah.
that was my line of thinking in bringing her into work on Drone Slayer.
As we wind down, I I want to ask a question. I want to zoom out and ask you this. Um, you're hitting your goals. You got your dream writing gig for Valiant. You are you got your dream gig as a comic book publisher. Sounds like you in your dream marriage. You're married to somebody you can collaborate with and exchange ideas with. What's missing for you?
One of the things that I feel like I'm missing is the camaraderie, and more specifically, like men. And you know, there was a lot of as sometimes you feel kind of alone in a sense that it's difficult to hang out with the bros,
Yeah.
um, especially nowadays. Like a lot of men that I know, they have families now, and if you're
Yeah.
a provider, there's just a lot of obligations you have.
Yep.
And myself included. A lot of this is my fault as well. I'm just not available like I used to be, and
Yep.
sometimes you just feel that you miss that, just hanging out with the bros, just going and not having any responsibility other than to just hang and chill and be
Yeah.
yourself, tell jokes, grab
Yeah.
some beers like that. I don't do that nearly as often. And even when I do have an opportunity to do it, I oftentimes like am too busy running the company or doing everything else. So that becomes sometimes a hindrance. So yeah, that's the thing that if you had to ask me what's missing, that's what's missing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough, man. I hear that for sure. And sometimes I find that when you do get you do meet somebody and you do go and get that beer, it's just not quite the same. There's not much alignment there. Because
It's not the same. Yep.
what was so cool about our time back in New York making music was that I think everybody had a certain way that they carried themselves
Hmm.
that you wanted to be around. You know,
Hmm.
and people had certain there was a certain drive, a certain interest in life and perspective,
Hmm.
that was always fun. I mean,
Hmm.
everybody was so inspiring, in so many different
Absolutely.
ways.
And then also, I mean, we mentioned COVID. COVID has a large part to do with that. You know, people are just different. People, it's
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to stay home nowadays. I mean, I never ordered Uber Eats before. Like, between
Yeah.
Uber Eats and the streaming services and and with video games and doom scrolling on social media, like it's very easy to just stay home. You have to
Yes.
really, nowadays, you have to really be invested to leave your house to go and spend time with other people. And that's what it makes it less organic, where we didn't have a choice before. We had to go out to entertain ourselves.
Right.
Now it's really almost more entertaining to stay home. So it's something that I've come to cope with, and I'm doing better. Like I'm going out more. Shout out Deep from the Two Hungry Bros. I'm gonna do a show with
Yeah.
him in a couple weeks so I can just get back into the scene and just see what's going on and just start rapping a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it's something that I'm trying to work on. I'm trying to be more intense on physically hanging out with other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, P for my well, P. See, I did it.
Go ahead. It's
AK
cool. You can call me P.So. still.
for my last, I guess my last question or my last ask. I want to ask you about the future, but you kind of touched on that earlier. So I guess, I just want to give you the last word. What do you want to leave folks with?
I want to just say that we're all different people, and everything that makes us different makes us beautiful. And don't forget that about yourself. Lean into whatever it is, whatever quirks, whatever things that you think make you strange or weird. Like that's what makes you important to this world. And
Mm,
I kind of wish I knew that before, because I was just afraid to do all this. When I first started doing music, I was afraid. When I first started writing, I was afraid. Like everything that I've done, I've had success. I was terrified of all those things and confused when I first started them. So use that, take that fear, take that anxiety and confusion and turn it into fuel. Put it in your belly and burn it like coal. And let it drive you forward. And that's the best advice I can give anyone is just bottle it into something that you can use to drive you forward. And yeah, that's what I guess that's the last word. And thank you so
Word.
much for doing this. Like your
Yeah.
question line of questioning was excellent. You did a lot of research. Thank you so much for that. You supported the company and the books.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay. I gotta
once
get
again,
hip.
thank you so much for this. This has been great. And I'm
Yeah.
so happy
Yeah.
to reconnect with you, bro.
Absolutely. Same here, man. Same here. Reach out to me. Hit me up anytime. Anytime.
Hmm.
Thank you for being a guest on my show, man. It really does mean a lot. Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much.